Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you so much for joining me tonight on the In Review, where we look at some of the top news this week. This has been a tumultuous week. I don't know whatever that word is, but a very funny week, exciting week, busy week. So many things have happened around the world, and tonight we'll just have a look and just maybe touch on a few of them. We cannot touch on everything. I want to thank those who are coming in on Instagram, seen on the replay there, or the overflow. Those on YouTube, those on Facebook, but primarily YouTube. And what I'll say is to like and share and watch the show and tell everybody about it as much as possible. Okay. Now, first of all, this today is the 20th of the first. Today is a very busy day, Thursday. Some of the things that we're looking at is possibly the prime minister is still standing. How long will he stand? That's a big question. UK COVID rules relax, no more mask and vaccine rules. I tell you what, I still like my mask though, no problem. I'm still going to wear my mask. I'm trying to say no problem. Will Russia invade Ukraine? That's another thing as well. And Barbados PM sworn in after second consecutive elections. And guess what? Jamaica has now a female defense staff for the JDF, Jamaica Defense Force, lady ready to take over. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me just bring in my guests as well and just get the ball rolling. And welcome, Reverend Gary Graham. How are you, sir? Okay, I'm not hearing any sound from you. Okay, there
Not
we
bad.
are.
I'm grateful to be on the great Silborn Cidio show.
That's the spirit, man. Great. And of course, it can only be great because of the great guest. Most Reverend Bishop Dr. A.F. Cummins. How are you, sir?
Fantastic, and by the grace of God, getting better. And it's always a pleasure and a privilege.
Yeah, every day is getting better. That's fantastic. And for those on Instagram, listen, you're part of the show. Ask your questions, and let me just see, and feel free to jump in. Peace. Gary, we need to get Michelle in, isn't it? Michelle is there, from Florida. We need to get your friend in. I'll send her something to see if she can come in as well, and Norman Gordon from Jamaica, welcome. Well, guys, listen. I don't know where you want to pick up from, but let's start. Do you think listen? Before I go any further, let us play something here if I can. But anyway, while I look for that, how's your week been, Gary? How's your week been?
Well, my week's been good, thank the Lord. I mean, it could be worse. There's so many others in our world today, in our own country. We don't have to look beyond the borders of our city or the borders of our country to know that there is so much suffering, so much uneasiness. People are hurting.
Yes.
But I'm here. I don't deserve what I have. I certainly don't deserve the mercies or the grace of God. But I'm here, and I'm glad that I'm alive and that I can enjoy the little that I have. So I've had a good week.
Yes. And most Reverend Audit.
Yeah, it's always a privilege, and to be the specific point concerning the roller coaster of the landscape in terms of activity, and from a spiritual perspective, it's just looking at some of the things that perhaps people might not look at in terms of the past, because in the past there are covenants, there are agreements, and there's a spiritual aspect to it. So it's been quite prophetically fulfilling, I think.
The British people
Yeah.
put trust.
So keep going. My apologies. Something I was playing a while ago. Keep talking. Got Audit.
Yeah, no problem. I think it's been quite prophetically fulfilling concerning what's taking place on the landscape. So I'm always, wanting to immerse myself in terms of what's taking place, but also look at the spiritual expression and the fulfillment that's taking place as well, which is very, very key. So that in my messages and my interactions is preparing people spiritually for the accuracy of prophecy. And it's never been a time for prophetic fulfillment, Silborn.
And when you say prophetically, like it's like you see like things unfolding, which is not surprising, but it's like a realization of the world based on thing which is known to come.
Yeah. So, for example, if you look at the book of Daniel, which is known as the ABC of prophecy, with regards to the book of Revelation being the XYZ. So, along that barometer, the prophet with the telescopic vision gave us a number of key indicators that I can see are being ticked in regards to the news, the activity, the present minds of the leaders. But also, as well, what people tend to forget is that the laws and the presidents, these make up the covenants and the agreements that go back hundreds of years. And so we know when we look at the Bible and we look at these covenants, it can often set a people back over 500 years, just the impressions of the coming together of a patriarch and a matriarch, the way they dealt with descendants, etc. So when I look at the landscape, I particularly see that being fulfilled, which is quite exciting.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just play something here, guys.
Because of the willingness of the British people to put trust, by the way, Mr. Speaker, in those judgments, to come forward in huge numbers to get vaccinated, which people did, and I thank them for it from the bottom of my heart. People did that because they listened to our messages, Mr. Speaker, and it's as a result of that that we now have the fastest growing economy in the G7 and youth unemployment, which he ought to care about, youth unemployment at a record low, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I know it's not going well, Prime Minister, but look on the bright side. At least the staff at number 10 know how to pack a suitcase. Mr. Speaker, last year, Her Majesty the Queen sat alone when she marked the passing of the man she'd been married to for 73 years. She followed the rules of the country that she leads. On the eve of that funeral, a suitcase was filled with booze and wheeled into Downing Street. A DJ played and staff parted late into the night. The Prime Minister has been forced to hand an apology to Her Majesty the Queen. Isn't he ashamed that he didn't hand in his resignation at the same time?
I just want to just pick that up right there. I'm hearing a feedback somewhere along the line, but I'll see if we can eliminate it in the process. Do you think that the Prime Minister should have gone already, or why is he still standing? What's your take on this, guys, based on the Partygate? I'm just throwing that one out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes democracy.
Welcome, Dr. Burton.
Greetings, Dr. Burton. Yeah, it just makes democracy on a stage, a world stage, because the British Empire, or what sort of constitutes the British Empire today, and their influence on 80% of the world speaking English in regards to the conflicts in their leadership. And that clearly is what Boris is going through. And in terms of resigning, it would be a sign of an untenable position that a leader may find himself in. A leader is supposed to basically set the example. So if he, and it appears he has not come up, in fact, he's avoided, then really, everybody's really waiting for him to resign. Otherwise, he's going to make his party very much a sterile party and put on, in terms of democracy, and we're one of the second biggest democracy in the world, only second to, I think it's either Japan. And this is the example. It's not looking very good for democracy and for this country.
Dr. Burton, how are you, sir? I don't know if you want to jump in there, or you want to leave in yourself.
Can you guys hear me very well? Hopefully, firstly.
Yeah, we can hear you very well. Yes.
Okay, good. I think the only thing I'd really say on this issue is the issue of probity and trustworthiness. That's what the electorate want from a political leader. I know some people would really focus on politics and say that it may not have that as an accord, but as a leader of a country, you need to have trustworthiness. You need to have a modicum of probity. And I think if those two issues are coming to a head at this moment in time, then it doesn't really lend itself very positively for him to be in the particular position he is in. So we'll just have to see. There's a lot that happens in politics. At one point in time in the week, it looked like it was he was definitely out, and now it looks like he's in. And I guess we just have to wait and see. But a week is a very long time in politics.
Because he did have a bounce in his step. I was saying at one point to someone, like he knows something. It's like he knows that the result of that report, or he knows that he's leaving, so his mind is just free. But he had a bounce in his steps in comparison to last week. Gary, what's your take on that? And what's your thoughts regarding the Prime Minister and how he's handling things? And should he have gone already or what?
I think Boris is on borrowed time. Really, I think I think his time is almost up. He's made some decisions that was not wise to have been made. Some things have gone under the bridge that he should not have allowed. He must have known about certain things. He must have known, and so because he knows what the country is going through, and it's the majority of the constituents of the country is going through. There are some things that you just should not have allowed to happen. And because it's happened, he's denied because he says it's not true. But there are some things he has apologized for. So because he's apologized, and it would seem that every so often, whether it's every week or every other day, something else is coming out, either by email to substantiate what he has said did not happen. But he still denies it. So I think, he's on borrowed time. And I think for the sake of the party, as well as for the country, he needs to, I think that would be the only, if it was during the time of Harold Wilson or Edward Heath or, Gladstone, whatever his name was back then, they would have gone. They would have just packed up their bags and moved out of 10 Downing Street and let somebody else go in.
You mean that is similar to what one of his key persons said, which was David Davis.
David Davis,
yeah, because David Davis made a fundamental point, and I'll play that bit there. What David Davis said, like a lone wolf, a lone voice.
That's what Conservative governments do. They create jobs and they get the economy moving.
David Davis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like many on these benches, I've spent weeks and months defending the Prime Minister against often angry constituents. I've reminded them of his success in delivering Brexit and on the vaccine and many other things. But I expect my leaders to shoulder the responsibility for the actions they take. Yesterday, he did the opposite of that. So I'll remind him of a quotation altogether too familiar to him of Leo Amery to Neville Chamberlain. You have sat there too long for all the good you have done. In the name of God, go.
Okay. So David Davis, one of the key bigwigs, actually saying to the Prime Minister to go. You think that will have any effect, or is that will galvanize him more support?
If I can say, just before my other honorable colleagues respond, I think if this had been done amongst the captains of industry, their shareholders would be saying, step down. And these men or women, as they may be, more or less probably either it's the same level or worse or less. And they're expected to step down. But the Prime Minister, who has the highest authority in the land, at least, let's say one of the highest authorities in the land, does what he's been doing and still says he's staying. I mean, no. I mean, what kind of example are we telling people? It's like what happened in the United States with last year this time. The United States is telling other countries, obey the rule of law, obey the rule of law. But then what happens in the capital? The same American go in and storm the capital, destroy. So it lessens the authority of the United States government across the world. It has affected the standing of the United States.
But
So I
what do you
believe
think? Yeah, but if he goes, what is the alternative now? I mean, well, first of all, you got to wait for that report from that Sue lady there. Is that Sue something? Or is supposed to do the top lady from the civil service?
yes,
So
yes.
I'm waiting for that. That is fair, isn't it? Wait for that report.
Okay,
David,
wait. But,
huh?
all
Sorry.
right, go on, go on, go on.
Yeah, no, David. I mean, we're talking about this report which is coming out soon. Isn't it wise to wait for this report to come out for persons to actually get their daggers ready later than earlier?
Well, that's the thing, Silvan. I don't know that it is. I'm not the voice in sort of deciding whether that you should wait for a report or not. I think there's lots that has already gone forward, and that's lots that's known for people to be able to make up their minds in this regard. What I will say in response to what Gary said there is that I think there has to be a due process, and that process is there for Conservative members to have a vote of no confidence if they feel that this Prime Minister is not leading the country in the way that they should. And I think that's the thing here. You've got to really be able to have that process followed. But I don't know that you have to wait for the report. I think it's painfully clear what's happened, and I don't know that the report will shed very much more light on that. So for me, I think that the Conservatives, if they want to act, they should act. Obviously, the only person that knows how far that act is taking place is Liam Brady. And we just have to wait for him to come back and either say hey or nay.
Yeah, because there's an MP that walked over Berry or whatever like that, and went to the Labour side. That is one. Well, some of them are saying that by the walk that he did, he has reduced the number that could have actually be putting in letters of that 54, which is needed to trigger a confidence vote. But many are actually saying that by him doing so, it has galvanized even support for the prime minister even more, whereby they are looking at it in a way by if you get him out, you're actually setting the country up for another election. Because it happened to Theresa May, it happened to Gordon Brown. Once there is a shift of a leader within a period which is not a general election, the press is going to push that person for a general election, and they'll be on his back, whether it's him, Rishi Sunak, or Sajid Javid, and then the whole country is going to be in this unstable zone. So there's a school of thought which is that should he just hang out for a while, get the COVID thing under the belt, or is it that he need to go now? I'm looking at it from just looking from a longer perspective.
I think on that, it's an interesting point, isn't it? With regards to where the direction of the party is, if there's a whole elective change to the direction of the party and the current image is shifted, then I don't see that being to the detriment of the party in itself. And number two, just because you have a leadership change doesn't mean you're going to necessarily have an election. And number three, even if you do have an election, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to lose that election. So, I think the directive of the Conservative Party, the people, the members within that party itself, have to really ruminate and think, well, actually, does it make sense to have a new leader, who's going to be in charge of that party, who will be able to represent the views of the majority within that party, and direct the party in a particular direction, in a particular way that makes them a lot more appealing to the populace, makes them a lot more trustworthy than the adults. Remember, I've touched on those two words again: probity and trustworthiness. And I think that's the direction that the party has to take, either with or without Boris, and whether you feel a new leader will give you that representation. And if you're given time, then obviously the electorate will be able to view that person in that spotlight, and potentially then that gives them the win and the edge. But I think with Boris in charge, he's got a harder path to try and change that perception if he wants to potentially win again. So that's why I say it's incumbent on the members of the Conservative Party to lend their ear to the direction in which they want the party to go.
You speak like you have inside information in the Conservative Party. You remember by chance?
I'm not a member. I'm not a member of any of the parties. I'm a member of the doctor party, which is pushing the mantra that the NHS, it needs to be protected, and it needs to be supported, funded adequately, in order for people's health and well-being to be maximised. So that's my party of choice.
Yeah, we're gonna come to that in a second when we talk about the new relaxation of the rules. But Audie, have a last word on this one, because we're not gonna stay long on Boris. Boris, all right.
I mean, I'd say as a bishop with an extensive ministries abroad and a number of people, hundreds of churches abroad, what I would say here is a situation that if it goes unaddressed, sufficient and proportionate to what the electorate would expect, then what's happened is, as a country and as a party and as an individual, it's the worst appearance of one doing what is right in one's own eyes. And when one starts to do what is right within one's own eyes, which in this instance, everybody is abhorrent to what under his leadership he had not only seen occur once, but sequentially 3 times, would be the sufficiency of what at even the time of the death of the monarch's husband would consider to be strongly insensitive to whether he would have the ability to lead a country, the complexity that it has, and not just that part of the environment, but in a time where there is in this particular in leadership is being questioned because it's the being able as a part of being a part of the actual political process, being able to live out the fundamental value of the policy that he was quite in the lead of setting. This is going to be very interesting political potential science that he's going to have to be able to negotiate complicated terrain that he appears to have created for himself. But as I said, I don't want to go into a situation where we are all doing what is right in our own wilds. There is a rule of law that he's not followed.
Yeah. Did you think that as Terma, the opposition leader, fared well? Because it is like he just keeps going around in circles saying the same thing from last week and this week. Nobody's talking about Ukraine and the pending war and high bills and high taxes. Everybody's trying to catch up Boris. You're mute,
yeah. So I'm going to say, I think in that regard, you got to look at the way that politics works. You got to strike when the iron's hot.
Inside information, you got inside.
You got to strike when the iron's hot, and the iron is rip roaringly hot right now. Too sensitive for anybody to touch, and that's why he's trying to go for it. So yes, I don't think there's anything that Tom has done incorrectly this week. Yes, there are other topics at hand. What's interesting is a topic that we're going to come on to, I'm sure, shortly, which is COVID. That's kind of gone under the radar this week because of what the issues that are surrounding Boris. So, I think a lot of things have gone under the radar just because of the heat that Boris is facing at the moment. So no, I don't think Starmer could have operated any differently. Yes, you can talk about the movement of a politician from one side to the other. It really shouldn't take place. It has taken place in this instance, and whether that changes people's mind and focus, we'll only come to find out in the next few weeks to months. But yes, I don't think there's very much that Starmer could have done differently.
Yeah. Gary, any last word before we shift from this topic? Are we good? You're on mute. Sorry, I asked you. You're on mute, Gary. I think you're on mute.
I said, not really. Just I'm agreeing with you that probably David has some inside knowledge of what's going on in the Conservative Party. He's doing very well. He's doing very well to shield that. So I leave that with him. I won't bother to bother him.
Listen, when in doubt, right, you go right to the top. Okay, you go straight to Dominic Cummings.
Wink, 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 wink. I got it, ladies and gentlemen. Well, listen, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. And for those on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, please share this video as well. I know this one is really testing on a lot of persons now, because this is like area, and it is like the UK seems to be charting the way forward, and the UK has charted the way forward in many ways. I mean, Jamaica has been using the video of Boris Johnson saying relaxing of the mask rules and the COVID pass to end. And because this feeds into different persons' perception and their biases and their prejudice, if you know what I'm saying. And I'm gonna just play this video just briefly. I won't take long with this one, so we can catch up on this one. Yeah.
Concluded that because of the extraordinary booster campaign, together with the way the public have responded to the Plan B measures, we can return to Plan A in England and allow Plan B regulations to expire.
I don't know what happened there. Okay, there.
As a result, from the start of Thursday next week,
Okay. I don't know what happened to Boris there. Maybe he's on his way out anyhow. You can. I'm here. Yes, you can see me. Yeah. Yes. Huh?
Yeah, you're here. You're there. We can see you.
David, David, just go straight into it now. I'm sorry? Gary, you said something?
No, they're blocking you. That's all I said.
Gary.
They're blocking you.
Oh, they're blocking me. Okay, they're blocking me. Well, David, you need to speak to somebody. You know what I'm trying to say? David, let's go straight into the COVID rule relax and face mask rules and COVID pass. And what is that actually saying now? And the key question people keep asking, is the science supporting the move, or is it a political thing for Boris to distract from the main thing, which is the party gate?
Wow, Silburn, so many questions. Well, let me just start by saying a couple of things. Quite obviously, people just cast their mind back to when the legislations first came into being in 2020. These acts were acts, or particularly one act, which is the Coronavirus Act, that really looked at stopping cessation in around March. Okay, so there are a couple of things that are coming up towards the end of March or beginning of March that the government is going to review, and the indications are that those will not be potentially renewed. So that's the first thing to say. Look, I don't know that we can really tie those in with Boris's current, because I don't know that he knew that he would have this particular issue in and around this time this year, predating back to when these acts first came in place. So that's the first thing. The second thing is just looking at these the restrictions that are being lifted. So yes, you're right. Face masks are potentially going to be revised. So the need and necessity in particular places are going to be lifted. And in that regard, I think one of the interesting things that Sajid Javid said today was that he will continue to still wear his face mask in particular areas. So I think you've got to really act in a manner that a lot of this is trust and being sensible. But if you're in a crowded environment and there's still a virus that's not going to disappear in March, then the sensible thing would be to wear a face mask. So that's my opinion, and I think that just makes perfect sense. Okay. So the second, the other things to mention in terms of the things that are being rolled out, the vaccines, just from what you've written there, it says UK rules relaxed and face mask rules and vaccine COVID passes to end. Vaccines aren't going to end. That's one thing I will say. So you might want to take that out before
I was wondering, because that's not correct, is it?
No, that's not correct. The vaccines won't end, but the COVID passes are due to end. So at the moment in time, that's why I put the bracket there. I put the bracket, yeah. So I don't want to confuse the listeners, but and viewers. But the COVID passes are due to end. So the COVID passes currently are employed in places of high population of groups of individuals. So, for example, if you went to a football match now, you'd be asked, and especially if that football match had more than 10,000 people, you would be asked to utilize a COVID pass or show a negative test result for COVID-19. That's again due to be lifted soon. And I think that's probably a good thing in itself, because there's a bit of discrepancy there, as you can see, between having a negative test and having a COVID pass, because a COVID pass doesn't tell you whether you're negative or positive. Quite obviously, it just says that you've had your vaccination or both your vaccinations. So that's probably a good thing going forward, because again, the discrepancy between the two. I think the way forward is looking good at the moment in time. Obviously, the number of cases that have been reported as positive is coming down. The overwhelming feeling, I think, is that the wave is coming down. But the question now that you asked about scientists, the unified voice of scientists, is not quite there. The government's own group, SBIM, really is a group that looks at modelling for the pandemic. That group really is a little bit at odds with other scientists in regards to their view as to whether or not the relaxation of the rules, particularly wearing of face masks, etc., are going to be pointing us in the right direction. So I think the feeling here is that we just have to watch this space. Undoubtedly, we're going to have to live with this virus. It's not going anywhere quickly. That's my feeling, and I think that's a feeling that will be represented and shared by many of my colleagues. The question is the response correct? Are we locking in the manner of fashion that we're doing a little bit too more, or are we entrusting the public to make their decisions in a manner of fashion that would be helpful to reduce the number of caseloads? I think we've got to trust the public.
You said something right there, which a few persons have been talking about. Trusting the people. Trusting the people. Are we saying there's a balance in that now about trusting the people? But you have to get in there, isn't it?
Exactly. I made that comment to say that I don't trust the people. I'm making the point that the government is now saying we should trust the people. Okay. And I think we've lived with this for a long period of time, and we're going to see how this plays out. So, we embark on that trust, we see how things work out, and then we can act accordingly. I don't think it means the whole COVID plan Bs are completely out the window. Obviously, we'll look at the data, and I say the medical community, the scientific community will look at the data, the number of people who are testing positives. I expect there's going to be an increase because obviously if you change a protection of people, telling people that they should work from home, etc., those sort of policies, and we just change them, and everybody's going back to work, and everybody's going back to the tube, and everybody's now not wearing masks. A lot of these things will culminate in, I'm sure, a slight rise in the number. But how much that rises, I feel a slight rise, but how much that rises, we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, let me just ask Gary. Gary, do you feel like you should be trusted? You can be trusted. The government can trust you to make up your mind whether how to operate, whether you wear a mask or what.
Well, yes. I mean, if the government can't trust its citizens, I mean, the government trusts citizens to make a choice for putting them in government, isn't it?
Yes.
So the government must be able to trust the citizens to make up their own minds for themselves. The moment they don't trust me is when dictators then make decisions that they feel that I can't make. So they should be able to trust me.
Or can they trust you?
As much as I have belief that the government basically can have that percentage of my trust as electorate, because obviously there is the trust as citizen, but there is also, that's going one way, but there's also the trust coming back this way. And so if I consistently see trustworthy signals of leadership, then of course that will be weighted greater, and then less in terms of me thinking I need to go through the process to make my petition such that they heed an aggregate petition, and that's democracy. But it's not complete theocracy, because it's putting my trust also in the Lord.
Because I think, David, and all people are now moving into a zone now whereby they are moving away from being told or guided as to what to do, and start to now take back responsibility for their action. Wearing the mask, is heard about it. I said, wow, I still like my mask. I still just like wearing my mask still at different places. You know what I mean? And I feel comfortable with that. I don't have no issue with the mask. So therefore, that is going to be the thing whereby how much do we trust the people? Because I've heard different medical persons are saying, I don't think it's we need to keep certain things. It's like George Floyd. I'm sorry, I'm not going to use that as an example, but like they're trying to keep their knees on the people's neck in the sense of trying to save them. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the thing. It's a balance, isn't it? I think if you've got people within a health arena like myself, we're not in the business of wanting people to pass away unnecessarily. We try and promote quality of life. We try and promote length of life, and hopefully the two marry up quite nicely. So I think, whilst we know a lot about the way that this virus works, there's still some unknowns. And what we don't know is how much of a bounce the virus will have following the restrictions being lifted. And so that's the key. We can model as much as we'd like, but you can only realize this once we start to unlock and lift some of the restrictions. What I do think, interestingly, you touched on it right at the very start. I'd say it was a loaded question. You had lots of things there. I couldn't pick everything apart necessarily. But one of the things I will say is, I don't know if you remember, right at the very start of the pandemic, the first wave, we used to look at different countries' examples and say, oh, that country seems to be working now, that country seems to be working now. And right at the very start, we said that Jamaica seems to be doing very well in this pandemic.
Yes.
And they're doing fantastically. And now the roles are reversed to a degree, a manner, or fashion, partly just because of time. I'm not going to say anything more than that. I think it's much more time than anything else. It's the complete reverse. The thing we should not do, really, is look at one country and say, because they're doing it well, we need to do what they're doing. Because everybody's different. We're not all in exactly the same time period in regards to the way that this the virus works. You'll remember the Delta wave affected us disproportionately to other parts of the world because they were completely fine. And then when we got over the Delta wave, the other parts of the world were affected. So it's time limited in terms of the focus that we should be able to lend to the way that a country is responding to the virus. Every country is different. And David, I think Jamaica should heed that.
And David, that's a very powerful point, because I guess you may have been looking at some of the Jamaican comments from Jamaica, and everybody's using the Boris video to say there Boris has said it now. We need to all do that, but it's a bit different because Jamaica is increasing as we are speaking about the spread, and the Prime Minister is a bit somewhat annoyed and disappointed that the take up of the vaccine is very low. So he just said, "Hey guys, listen, no more lockdown. So we just do what we have to do. If you get sick, you get sick." So the Prime Minister said, that's where he point, because he said this lockdown can't happen as much as possible. But just moving on quickly with the work from home now, which has been lifted. I see the bankers are actually saying, "Hey guys, get back into the office." Will that be a boost for the economy now with the Pret a Manger and all these places that deal with food in the city? Are they?
Yeah. I think there's going to be some spikes, but I also think that it's going to be a situation where people's going to have to, their changes are going to have to take the time it's going to have to take in terms of children, schooling, routines, domestic, and that policy to really see through. But thus far, certainly UK citizens have proved themselves evidently very robust and flexible to be able to manage, because I do believe our previous actual person that was contributing to the show based in Florida thought that looking at our situation in the UK, it was highly almost like a matrix compared to where she was in Florida of America. And then at the same time, our good doctor here expounding that Jamaica would need to apply more individualization. So what I think is, in terms of the answer to the question, is that I think we'll rise to the occasion, but it's gonna take a little while for everybody to move into a form of togetherness that's going to be compliant for the given situation.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, David, are we then somewhat out of the woods then? Gary, would you say that, would you get the impression that we are somewhat out of the woods? Wow. David is always Mr. Positive, you know.
I am
No, I
positive,
mean,
and that should. Yeah, go, Gary, and I'll
go ahead. Go ahead then. Go ahead.
No, the question again loaded for me there, Silbone. Are we out of the woods? We can't say that, Silbone.
I
We
know,
can't,
I know. Yeah,
The woods are still thick.
Yes.
Fortunately, not so thick as before. We've got ways out. We're playing in the woods, though. I think we're
Yes.
playing in the woods, because, before we were lost, we couldn't find our way out. We couldn't find our way around, sorry. There's light.
I know the woods where I run in the morning.
Yeah,
I mean, I know it very well.
Thick fog. There was thick fog, Silbone. But the fog is lifting. We can see the trees. We can hear the birds. We're starting to have a little bit more joy. But no, we're not out of the woods. But I am very hopeful because of the fact that, again, we touched on the vaccine, but also we should touch on the medicines that are now available to us that are being utilized across the NHS now for people who are vulnerable. And those medicines are there. There's a preemptive strike to try and reduce the chance that people pick up, that people will have severe illness through COVID-19. And so, I'm hopeful. But we're not out of the woods.
Last word, Audie and Gary, out of the woods, seeing the light.
I would I would support my friend Dave. However, and you may not support what I'm saying on the second part. This COVID-19, as in my not so wonderful mind as my learned friend here, Dr. David, but I want to believe that I think that the COVID is just like it's a flu virus, isn't it, David? It's a flu virus, and it's just like the other flus of yesterday, if I can call that. Whereas many died because of the flu, and there were medicines that came about to address that issue. I understand that this may have come about again. It what's the word, Dave? It
Mutated.
Yes. It mutated into this form. It has caught us off guard, but we are now getting used to that. To me, again, let's say 5 years down the road, I probably will be taking another form of lemship to counteract COVID-19, but it won't be known as COVID-19.
Yes.
It may be known as another type of flu that I will get over. And so, yes, we're not out of the woods. I believe that we are still, there is something there. I would never tell anybody that there isn't anybody. It has affected the world over. It has affected many lives, countless lives. Yeah. But I think that if we properly, sensibly, as we have been doing, people have been saved. People have been saved from the edge. And I just believe that it will be something that we will be able to cope with. The governments, I don't know, I'm just talking what the governments may then say, okay, let's relax on the vaccine. Because obviously there are countless thousands, probably millions of people who have not taken the vaccine and will never take the vaccine. And they will even say, if you don't want me to travel, I'm not going to travel. I won't go anywhere. It's not going to hurt them. The travel industry may lose out on millions of pounds, billions of pounds for those who have decided, okay, I don't have to go anywhere. But there will be millions of people who will not take the vaccine. It doesn't matter what the governments may say. So I think there's going to have to be a give and take on both sides of the divide for us to understand and cope with this thing.
Yeah. I think I hear what you say there, because that is where some of the persons who are talking about balancing and the mandate, and especially in David's fraternity in the NHS, like Dr. Steve James, talking about that it is good that there is this conversation. Dr. Steve James said, I don't want to be the face of anything like anti-vax, or there's like Nova Jockey saying, don't want to be the face of it. But that the conversation is taking place now in regards to how do we deal with it as we are coming out of the woods? Will that with the and of course, David, I'm not expecting you to answer that because that is Van Dam, Tam, and Witty. I haven't seen Witty for a while. He's on holidays. Where's Witty? David, where's Witty?
I don't know where it is.
Come
I've
on.
no idea. He's been a busy man, and he's
Man,
he's dealing with a lot.
he's disappeared, man. He disappeared. But hey, let's go over to Barbados. Let's travel to Barbados because David's friend where he went and voted for her and set her up. She came back winning, man. There she is. The I'm gonna get the write up here. I can't even find the write up for her, but Barbados, yeah, there she is. She won second consecutive election, and guess how many seats? Guess how many seats, guys?
30.
30. 30 out of 30. Man, she won the 30 seats. David, did you do something about that? You caused that to happen.
It wasn't me, but there's a certain leader in this country that might want to look at how she did that and how she managed to do that. I mean, she spoke to the people. It's as simple as that. And they saw leadership. They showed trustworthiness. And there was no stain on her probity. That's as much as I will say. She obviously speaks for the people.
She seems to be a very strong voice for the Caribbean, though. Like, Audie, I don't know if you have been following this lady here. She seems to be a very strong voice that it's like becoming the sort of Eugenia Charles, the Iron Lady of the Caribbean.
Unfortunately, I've not been following her as much as I'd like, but what I've seen thus far is that her actual leadership is quite timely concerning the strategic 17 goals globally. So globally, there are strategically 17 goals that all countries on the planet, 265 countries, have to adhere to. And one of the actual rules is a very much more diverse country. And the fact that she's a lady, she's on the scene, she's leading and managing. I'd say that it's external as well as internal factors.
Yes,
that's my view on her critical leadership, and that she really ticks those boxes of diversity that are not even very reflective here within the UK in terms of balance of female and male. And I think the fact that she's a black woman, strong black woman, intelligent, time to lead and go forward. In fact, I believe that Jamaica is supposed to be the most diverse place in the world for both balance of female and male, which is interesting in terms of the 7 strategic goals.
Yes, that's true. And Gary, what's your take on Mia Mottley, champion for the cause of women?
Well, fair dues to her. I mean, I hope that she succeeds with what she has set out to do. And I don't think it will be easy, but, I wish her all the best.
Yes. It's very powerful because even in Jamaica now, we just saw a new lady actually just took position there, and she is the, let me see if I can find her, a new JDF, the new JDF chief. As I was watching the swearing-in ceremony today, and here's a good snippets of it, guys. Got everything from the Prime Minister.
Rear Admiral.
Rear Admiral Antoinette Sandra Lee Weems Gorman, Order of Distinction, Justice of the Peace. Whereas it is provided by Section 170 of the Defense Act that the Governor General shall appoint an officer being a member of Her Majesty's forces, in whom the command of the Jamaica Defense Force shall be vested, and subject to the terms of such appointment, such officer shall have the command of that force. And whereas Lieutenant General Rocky Meade, Commander of the Order of Distinction, relinquishes the post of Chief of Defense Staff of the Jamaica Defense Force on the 21st January 2022.
Now, I'm not going to say any more about it, but in the end of the speech lady was doing, who was speaking on behalf of the Governor General, she said swore allegiance to the Queen. you know, you know. I saw that and I said it's very interesting because Barbados now is stopping swearing the allegiance to the Queen, but this lady has sworn allegiance to the Queen, her royal, and they said in the 70th reign of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, right? So I think the big thing now for Jamaica is when are they going to progress the process of Jamaica moving away from being, um, you know, to become a republic? Do you think there's a scope for that now? I mean, it's a time for the partner draw. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if anybody know what is a partner draw.
I know what a partner draw is, but I question why they would do that. Okay, not why, but who would do that, and making that as a mandate to move forward. I think if they were going to do it, the time would be now because the momentum is there, quite obviously. But I just don't know that the Prime Minister will change his position in that regard, and whether even the opposition would want to change their position.
Yes.
So that's my question. I just don't know. I think the time is right. It's perfect if that was going to materialise. But I just don't know that any of the political parties would want to try and champion it a bit to drive that determined effort. At times, I remember when we had the diaspora movement, it was always a question that was raised during those conferences, but it was never something that was really taken any step further. Obviously,
the same one which I raised about the Queen and the
exactly
still going around in circles, isn't it, Dave?
Still going around in circles. Whereas, for whatever reason, that was something that the Barbadians wanted to take as a movement forward, and it empowered them to want to move that discussion forward. And it has now materialized. So that's my question. So I don't know that we have any of the parties who have that as their as part of their mandate.
Well, there's a communication on the side there, which I'm putting up by Moments with Norma. Time for change. Two parties in Jamaica have had 78 years to make change instead of selling Jamaica off. So I think it's appropriate time now with the Queen Jubilee, 78 years. I'm just linking it. It doesn't make sense though. PNP and JP need to go. But what the person is actually talking about is time for the UIC. That is the new party there. It's interesting what is happening in Jamaica now. There are lots of things going on there. New JDF person. The Prime Minister did a reshuffle. Not much. People said it represented. And crime. Admiral Bailey is saying bring back hanging as well. That is something else to deal with the crime. Because I don't know if you guys have heard recently, and this was a terrible one, of a 9-year-old boy being killed in the back of a car. You know, that was really gross. And so far, I think there's I don't know the numbers, how many deaths or murders have happened in Jamaica this year so far. And when they look at it, sometimes St. Lucia was crying out the other day because they've had 2 murders for the start of the year, and I think Jamaica has about 30. You know, and Barbados was crying out and say, "What's going on?" You know, so that's the situation there. But I'm not going to touch on to Ukraine now because Biden is sorting that out with his gaff. I don't know if you have been following that, guys.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I think with Ukraine, it's almost similar thing to when the Russians were trying to go into Cuba, and now America is now trying to get into Ukraine to be next to Russia, and Russia said not over a dead body. You know. So anyway, any last word, guys, before we wrap up?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Jamaica and its the possibility. I think it will be a consideration. Whether that consideration be imminent or whether that consideration be further down the road, that's a decision that they will need to consider. And it brings me to a book which was by Walter Rodney, and it was how Europe neo-colonialized Africa. And I draw that to the attention where neocolonialization is where they receive political power, but not economic power. And the fact that these countries, such as Jamaica, have to actually pay. There's an economic exchange for the present position that it holds. Therefore, these will be considerations, and an entrenched mindset is not going to be the best in terms of change. But change is inevitable, and we do need to be looking at that. Self-determination of one's direction and the responsibility for its own matters will be the direction that they need to move in. So that's really a main summary that I wanted to, and that was on Walter Rodney and the neocolonialization, which is a chapter. And there is even a chapter in Jeremiah which talks about a people and God bringing the people out and giving them a sense of independence. And I do believe that God is calling His people. For out of many, we indeed are one, and we need to have one direction. And that's only really comes with self-determination. The way in which the Windrush has been handled clearly shows that determination needed to be and still needs to be established. And we can't be looking to an actual institution that doesn't quite always take care of us. Since Winston Churchill said that let that Windrush go to Africa and let them pick peanuts. Since Enoch Powell came and he basically wanted, on one hand, us after the war for domestic assistance, and then on the other hand, giving leaflets outside of my school to say that we ought to go home, rivers of blood. Tony Blair, in regards to Jack Straw, suggestion after actual Lawrence case, Jack Straw put a very sensible solution that his party ought to now gain the trust of the younger generation, as our grandparents had suffered, and they now ought to be now looking to make that up. And Tony Blair said no. So what we're finding is we need our own self-determination, take responsibility ourselves, take off the training wheels, get rid of the training reins. When we're little kids, we get training reins. When we get big, walk and talk.
Definitely, guys. All right, and well, thank you so much, guys. Time has run out on us. What can I say? David, have a great week, rest of the week. Keep us posted as to how things are happening regarding the rollout of the end. Let's hope we can move towards the end. And
not the end, just not the complete end. We're not looking at the world
moving
end.
I'm
teasing.
Towards end. and Gary, the last word, sir. Yeah.
No, I think yes, I would agree with what everybody says. I'm hoping that Jamaica makes the turnaround. 74 killings already up until now.
That's what somebody just said a while ago. It's shocking. 74 killings.
It is shocking. It is shocking. And seeing that Jamaica and Jamaicans can do so much, yet it's just a few that is really bringing down the good name of Jamaica.
Yes.
Now, whether making Jamaica a republic will help, I don't know, because our laws would have to be strengthened for us to be a little bit more meaningful. I don't know, and that people take us more seriously. But anyway, it's great to be alive.
And I do think as well that before we're talking about moving from the present position, but to deal with the whole issue of crime, that is a fundamental thing. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining, and David, thank you very much. Reverend Bishop,
thank you guys.
Sir Gary, thank you so much for coming on. I'll just do some housekeeping as I say bye to you guys. All right, peace out. Okay, cheers. Thanks. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for that. And just to let you know that I would like just remind you that there was a show which I had on a week and a half ago, the late one, a dialogue with the Maroons. It'd be great for you to actually watch it on YouTube. Very informative show with Daniel. I haven't got the chief as yet. I'm hoping to get the chief to talk more, and I'm actually going to try to reach out to very own Shepherd, I believe, a professor, just to sort of give more discussion on the Maroons and African history. I think that is very important as well. Last week we had Saturday night talk about motivation and empowerment on Talk and Sip Talk and Sip, which is Saturday night on YouTube, where you just have a drink. I'm looking forward for you to come on to that one, which is next week, this Saturday, which would be the 22nd at 10 p.m. What I find very interesting with Talk and Sip now is that we get persons that come on and they will maybe talk about their business. We had someone who sang a song the other day, which was really good. So therefore, I'm using it as an opportunity to promote persons and for people to have a chill down discussion. I've known that you have people who say they look forward to the show because it's a bit relaxed, and you don't have to have any alcohol or anything, just a quick drink as well. And I'm looking to have some more interviews with some key persons. I'm supposed to have something with Ed Bartlett talking about how Jamaica is moving forward with the tourism, and also Delana Franklin as well lined up. And so that's it. So without further ado, have a good evening and God bless you. Let me just say bye to somebody said Andrew Holdings need to go. Okay, well, let's say Boris need to go as well. All right. Have a good night. God bless you and peace out.